Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sovereign AF Podcast. I'm your host, Regina Cornelio, and I just had a wonderful chat with my friend and new business partner, Brandon Belk. And I just realized that we just filmed a podcast. So we are actually filming this introduction after the fact because the chat was really amazing. And it's been 2 years since I've done a podcast. This message is so important. That's why I'm coming back to put this out there as a special pop-up episode, which I hope you enjoy. And before I introduce Brandon, I just want to say we are going to be kind of talking about the financial climate and our upcoming seminar where we are talking about what is it called? The 7-and-7 approach. Brandon, what do we call it? Hold on.
Yeah, the 7x7 approach.
The 7-by-7 approach, 7 places for your money and 7 actions to take. Okay. For those of you that don't know my so-called matrix job, I am a financial advisor and a fiduciary. I work in our mainstream financial system, and I am definitely not your average advisor. So, seeing the writing on the wall and sounding the alarm and trying to look to help people put their money in alternative places. And I partnered with Brandon. That story is kind of an interesting story, but we just kind of got on a call. My fiance said, "You got to meet Brandon. You got to meet Brandon." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, whatever." And I get on a call and intuitively, immediately I knew like there's more to this conversation than just a new friend or I knew he's going to coach me on some crypto or what. Like, I just felt like, hey, we're supposed to do something together. And I kind of put it out there and it might have sounded crazy. And here we are, starting a side business for creating that bridge for what's to come, for the changes that are coming to help people find financial sovereignty. So, Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've come into this present moment through like a soul calling, I would say, that started back in 2020, 2021, and starting to witness the changes happening in the global financial system and just seeing and again kind of intuitively feeling like, you know, the world and kind of the reserve currency as we've known it is all going through a structural change and a whole new infrastructure is being built. And so I found a, kind of, like I said, a new calling and a mission to help show people what these changes are that are occurring and how to best prepare for that in a way that enhances our own personal sovereignty so that we can really take this as an advantage to increase our own personal power and ability to influence how the world looks as a result, as opposed to being dependent on these power structures that we historically have been. And so I see this, potential, reset as an opportunity to also reset our own level of personal sovereignty. And so
Mm,
teaching people how to become their own banker and giving, every dollar multiple jobs is what I'm all about.
I love it. I love it. Um, Awesome. Well, I am just going to say enjoy the conversation. We literally had an impromptu chat that we did record. And about 3/4 of the way through, I decided this is absolutely a podcast episode and it's important. And I hope you guys enjoy the chat. Thank you.
Cool. So Regina, what do you think is going to happen like in the next like month to 6 months,
Hmm.
maybe even a year?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
I was going to
where we
say
are.
it's hard. It's so hard to put a timeline because, oh, gosh, there's just so much going on. But here's what my intuition says is likely to occur, and it could be a variation of this. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think what's likely to occur is um, I do think in some way that the elites are going to use the Iran war to affect the financial system in some way. It already kind of is. It already is creating volatility. And then we're seeing it, it affects energy and oil. And now with Iran saying that, they're not just going to use the petrodollar, they're now going to accept, I think it was Chinese dollars, right? And so I am just
Yeah,
feeling like,
Chinese yuan and crypto was the other thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
I'm just feeling like the US dollar is a ticking time bomb. And so nobody knows when or how. I almost feel like it's overdue. Like I'm kind of almost shocked it hasn't happened already, to be honest with you. But when the dollar crashes or resets or whatever, I hate to use the word reset because the elites are already using that word, but
Mhm.
I do think they are planning a reset where the dollar crashes and we're not using the dollar anymore. Um, it's hard to say what's going to happen, but you can look at other times in history like Venezuela or Argentina when their currency crashed. They couldn't afford food. Like a carton of eggs was like hundreds of dollars. Like the inflation we have now is, you know, like normal inflation, but I'm talking about like hyperinflation where, people can't live like that, and you see folks start to, barter with their neighbors, and the people that survived and did well were the ones that bartered with their neighbors. You also saw a mass exodus from those countries during that time. And I think we kind of chatted on this, and others have said this too. And my intuition says it's going to happen in waves. Like we're seeing signs now, some of us anyway. And people like you and I are preparing now and hoping to help others prepare as well. But I think you'll start to see some things happen, like it goes down, then maybe comes back up, and then you're like, okay, you're like people are becoming more aware. And it's like you have a little time to start to do things, but really the time is now. The sooner you can prepare now, but I think it's going to happen in waves. I don't know how they're going to do this whole reset. I don't see, again, is it going to happen in waves? Is it going to be so much that it affects? I think it's absolutely going to affect 401ks, IRAs, money in the market. But is it going to go so far where it affects pensions,
Mhm.
Social Security, um, the bank? I mean, I don't really trust the bank either. We've seen banks go out of business in our lifetime. We've seen banks get bailed out in our lifetime. So the only thing we can go on is facts of what we know, facts of what we've seen in other countries, and then our intuition, which I think is so important. There's all these influencers out there talking about this and that. And um, I think some of them are part of the agenda, just kind of parroting the narrative. And then some of them are telling you the truth, like, hey, this is likely to happen. And so this is a time of massive discernment. And yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly how and what's going to happen. I think sometime between tomorrow and the next year, something major is going to happen in our financial system. I think the US dollar is worth close to nothing, and the spending is through the roof, and it can only go on for so long. So I think we will see some type of reset. We know if you look at, places like the World Economic Forum and um, things like that. I mean, they are planning a digital reset and a central bank digital currency. We know that's the agenda. I say we, like those who have a certain level of awareness know that's the agenda. Um, so it seems likely that why not use this war to usher in this financial reset? Um, so I think that's what we're likely to see. I don't know how deep this so-called crash is going to go. Um, I my intuition says that what is coming is something that everyone will feel, not no matter how prepared you are. And I'm not saying that to scare people, but I don't think this is something that you can be completely untouched in your little beautiful bubble.
Yeah.
But I do obviously think you can prepare and be have an easier, smoother way through whatever they're going to throw at us, whether it's financial reset or another pandemic or who knows, right? Because I don't think this is the only thing coming. So So yeah, I think that massive changes are coming in our financial climate, and anything that happens to the United States will affect the rest of the world. So I do think that we are a target. And I don't, I'm not trying to get conspiratorial, but I mean, the conspiracy theorists are their record is pretty good right now
Yeah,
for the stuff that
for
they've
sure.
said and they've warned us on. I mean, and so here we are again, kind of sounding the alarm. And it's really just a time to prepare and not to be in fear, because that's what they want. They feed off of the fear. So getting your house in order without fear should feel comfortable, should help you feel comfortable, knowing, also mentally preparing, saying, hey, like, mentally preparing, like, we could see a massive downturn or a crash. And then if it's better than that, at least you're mentally prepared for that. You're somewhat physically prepared and financially prepared, and that's really all you can do, is the best that you can do. Really, no matter how big or small, it's going to come down to communities and how we operate in our communities. If it's that bad, I'm going to be trading with my neighbor who's about to give me some strawberry and raspberry bush.
Cool.
I'll have to have something to give him. And, we did some work on his property. That was the trade. But, if we were in a real life bartering situation, it might be something like that, where we're, got eggs from another neighbor. I've got some extra, you know, other fruits, vegetables that I'm growing, or medicinal herbs, or I mean, lots of things. So yeah, I do think that we're headed towards a big change. And, at the spiritual consciousness level, um, the vast majority, if not all, of our major systems in this reality are really low frequency and corrupt, and they're not set up for our success. So I think that as things shift in our reality on the spiritual level, I think the planet, Mother Earth is shifting too. And as that consciousness rises, so to speak, um, the the dark agendas and the dark systems can no longer function, at least on some timelines, right? So on the positive side, like, truth is coming to light. People are becoming more aware. And whenever I see a major, like Hurricane Helene, for example, both you and I mean, you were in Nashville during that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have never seen so much community in Northeast Tennessee or Asheville in my entire life. So there's always a silver lining. There's always a plus, and there's more awareness here. There's folks that I would call, like normies, that kind of just mainstream and follow what's on TV and follow the narrative, that were questioning weather and weather manipulation, thinking, how do we get a hurricane in the mountains with no warning, really? That
Yeah.
doesn't really add up. And so, again, everything that they do brings us together more and raises more awareness. So, I think it's about not being in fear. And I think, at our seminar, or when we, if anyone wants our help in any way when we're meeting with people, I think I'm going to just say it. Nobody really knows, but if you look at the signs of other countries whose currencies failed, we're seeing those signs now. If you look at the signs in our reality with the war and the petrodollar, um, and our US dollar is backed by nothing, it's backed by what we believe its value is. It's literally
Support
like
military.
monopoly money. It's like paper, you know, monopoly money. So it's the value we give it. And um so yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, trying to think of anything I left out. What other questions do you have? Did that give you kind of a view of, like, what I think is going to happen? Is I really don't know, but my intuition says big changes are coming. And um who really knows for sure how or when? We don't.
Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderfully articulated like blanket thesis that kind of covers all the general
Yeah.
basis, like you everything, a lot of the points you made were kind of like, it's like what you know to be true, even in the context of like, and kind of where that limit is right before you get to kind of like the details. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think it's a really good explanation that most people should be able to resonate with on some level.
Yeah, and I don't know how deep we need to go. We can point out some of those points that we're seeing a little bit more, right? Um, just because I think it sounds a little bit more factual.
Mhm.
But I don't think we have to go that deep. Uh, we're calling in those that already see something is coming. And
And also people
yeah.
probably have their own collection of details that would
Hmm.
all fit within the umbrella statements that you were making. So it's kind of like if we if we if we communicate or kind of open the dialogue with the points you were making, then
Hmm.
it allows the whole array of detailed perspectives to kind of like click in a way that can create more alignment versus like
Yeah.
uh like disagreements or whatever.
And I think that people can believe a wide spectrum along that spectrum, but as long as they know changes are coming and you should prepare and it's pretty urgent. Like if someone thinks, "Oh, it's just gonna be a little downturn, probably not even bad as 2008," like, okay, whatever. Like that's not really enough urgency that what I'm seeing that doesn't really align with what I'm seeing. But if it's enough for them to make a change, great, good for them. But um I'm seeing worse than 2008. Or maybe different's the word.
Yeah, more widespread perhaps.
Yeah, maybe different, maybe it's I mean, if it's a full currency reset, that's something that we've never seen.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It could be
not in our lifetime. Yeah.
anywhere from a pretty big downturn to a full currency reset. I fully believe their agenda is a full currency reset. And I think the folks that align with our type of thinking and are asking questions, um, are thinking that too, and then there's folks that think, that, Trump is playing 5D chess and we're going to get the quantum financial system. Just kick back and, wait for your Rockefeller check in the mail when they liquidate the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds accounts. I mean, that would be amazing, but we're not really we're not really putting any work in, that's not really the great
Yeah.
awakening. That's just kind of
That's
kicking
like
back
icing
and
on
we're
the
getting
cake,
paid. Someone's
maybe.
saving us, at that point, and I don't think anyone's coming to save us.
And like
Um,
you said, if they do, then that's just icing on the cake. It's not like
yeah,
you can't base your
yeah.
survival on that. Yeah.
Yeah, if someone, a public figure that has a little bit of power, I don't even think those public figures have much power. They're pretty low on the totem pole, on even the president, in all honesty, when you look at the true power.
Hmm.
But if any of those folks that have any money and power decide, hey, even if they were part of the agenda, they decide to change their mind, like, hey, I'm switching over sides now. I'm actually gonna help humanity. I mean, that's phenomenal. Great. That would be helpful to us. But sitting back and planning on anybody like saving us is just going to breed complacency and that's what they want. So,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. It's not an empowered response. It's a dependent response.
mhm,
Which means, childish,
mhm.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
having that responsibility, cultivating that, then, like you were saying, yeah, it gives people a foundation on which they can rely on, and then the rest can just be like blessings.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm open to someone being good that might look bad or someone switching sides. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, that would be awesome, but um if we sit back and plan on that and do nothing, then you know, um
Unnecessary risk. Yeah.
and I know within what I said, you have this whole um, thesis about how crypto certain cryptocurrencies kind of play in for sovereignty. Um, I think that's more kind of your side of things. And my take on that, I'll be honest with you, is I'm not 100% sure. I don't think anybody is, right? I have crypto. Jeff has a lot of crypto. Um, I believe it's one of the different places we should put our money. I don't put all my eggs in one basket. And I think it's fine if you're a little bit more bullish on crypto than I am. I'm kind of like, I don't know, but I have some crypto.
Yeah.
And I hope that there is some sovereignty in the ones that we are focusing on. That would be awesome, you know? In the back of my mind, I'm like, what if it's all a psyop and we turn around, they're just like, ha ha ha, we own XRP too, suckers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's likely, but I'm in a place where my main emphasis isn't crypto, and I know you have a high emphasis on it, and I think that's cool that we can um, come together from a little different perspective because we add value in different ways. Like if we were both mainly talk about crypto, like who cares? We don't even need to partner. You do crypto over there, I'll do crypto over here. You know what I mean? So I think it's our expertise being a little bit different is perfect. That's why we came together. And I'm not, I don't think I'm not sitting here saying it's a trap. I hate crypto.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm unsure. I am hopeful and I have some and I recommend it. But I also say I would have some other things too. So I fully believe in the multiple bucket approach to this preparation. I couldn't say any one is the most important. If I had to bet money on the thing that will last through, I'll be honest with you, and I don't know that we put this out there, it's precious metals. Like I hands down 100% believe precious metals are not going anywhere. Physical ones, not digital ones. Um, I do believe in every bucket we're talking about. Um, but it's hard to say 100%. I believe in every single thing here is 100%, right? Because there's so much uncertainty. Um, So that's kind of where I'm at in like what we're recommending is where I'm putting my money. So if I'm going to recommend it and I'm putting my money there, what's the saying? I'm putting my money where my mouth is or something like that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I fully believe in getting the cash value policy and I want some stable coin because I want to be able to say, I have everything I'm recommending to you. Like
Mhm.
you're hearing from an aware financial advisor, not a mainstream one who knows at least half a clue of what's really going on. I don't know everything. There's too much to know everything, but this is where I'm putting my money. This is what I believe in. And so I think that's kind of the point of this is to, if you want the 60/40 mutual fund stock bond portfolio that everybody has, just go to any Edward Jones on any street corner and, put your money in the market and just, chill. You're just going to ride the wave like everybody else. And that's what my mom's doing. She won't listen. That's what a lot of folks are doing, and for some people, that's their path, and that's fine. Like, I'm not here to convince anybody. This message is for the folks that know that COVID didn't come from a bat in China, that
That's
that
a clip.
9/11 was not, a terrorist attack. This is for the folks that are questioning reality. This is for the folks that are like, why did I wear a mask when I went to a restaurant in COVID? Why did I wear a mask from the door to the table and then I take it off? The COVID goes away at the table. Like these are for the critical thinkers. And I'm like simplifying it, but like I'm serious. These are for the critical thinkers that are like, wait a second, not everything's adding up here. Not everything's adding up today. Like what's happening in Iran? Like not everything is adding up and we don't have to just follow the mainstream narrative, the mainstream left narrative, the mainstream right narrative that, the media is owned by like what, six corporations and it's scary. You'll see reels online from COVID or other big events they're all parroting the same phrases. It's scripted. Like journalists today are scripted.
Mhm.
It's not real journalism. And so, in fact, I think a lot of our reality is scripted. I believe like presidents and politicians are scripted 99.999%. So, um, what we're doing is for folks that are asking questions. Like I'm not in the phase where I'm trying to wake people up anymore. Um, I hope that people just gain more awareness over time with everything that happens and is to come. But I'm not, that's in my opinion, a waste of my time and energy. I'm going to just try to lead the way if I can, the best I can. And if people resonate, they can join in, that's great. So, um,
Woo!
any other questions? Does that kind of
Awesome. No, I love it. You tapped into the passion and so many really good clips there, by the way. I think there's a lot of gold in what you were saying, and um, yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's kind of the theme, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the ethos of everything that we're about, you know, summed up into this or through this lens of money, which is the
Mhm,
currency, right? It's the current of this. It's like the blood, the liquid, right? The liquidity of this realm, of this
mm.
matrix. And so, um, that's
Do you want
that's
me to do you want me to speak really quick on the spiritual side of what I see or no?
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I've always been very intuitive and I don't share this with many people because I don't put myself out there as like an intuitive or a psychic or anything, but I get random visions. It's not to the point where I call on it and be like, "Brandon, let me talk to your guides and your higher self. I'll give you a message." Like it's random and I'm trying to dial that in and develop my clairvoyance. But I did have a vision in it. I believe it was like the fall of 2021,
Mhm.
and I saw myself sitting there playing the guitar, which I can't play, and singing, which I cannot sing. And um, there was a path coming towards me, and there was people walking down that path, and then it forked right in front of me, to the left and to the right. And I was sitting there and I was just playing the guitar, singing, and I saw a lot of people going to the left. And then I saw some going to the right, not as many. And I just kept sitting there playing, and there's multiple messages I feel in this vision. One of them is as I was singing and I was smiling at these folks, the smile like let off like a light bulb, and the light bubble like went to that person. It was almost like I was with my smile sending them well wishes on their path. And it made me realize like how powerful your intentions are, your words, your smile. And I could feel like that they felt it.
Mhm.
And then a smaller amount of folks were going to the right, and I kept seeing like one or two or group of people with holding torches, and there were people following them on the right. And intuitively, I felt like we are heading towards this timeline split. And it was very generic in the vision. I think there's an infinite amount of timelines. But I think that there are, I want to say two main directions humanity can go in, and there's variations on those directions. And from a spiritual perspective, I think we're exiting, I don't know if it's a 12 or 13,000 cycle, or I don't know exactly, but I think we go in cycles and we're getting towards the end of that cycle. And some people aren't ready to move on to whether it's the next level, the next dimension, the next spiritual level, I don't know. And they're choosing to continue on, go to the left path where they can do another 12 or 13,000 cycle. Sorry, I just hit something on my screen. Um, and then there's less folks, but there are some folks going to the right. And those are the ones where I saw they're holding a torch and they're lighting the way and people are following them. And that's you and I. We're holding that torch. And I saw them, there was less, but they were going to the right. And I knew that meant like they're choosing like, hey, had a lot of fun in this human existence. This was great, challenging and awesome. And I don't need to redo another 13,000 cycle. I'm ready to move on. I don't know if it's different dimensions, another reality, or what it is, right? But I'm ready to move on from this now. And that's what the path to the right was. And I felt kind of sad. Like my human self felt sad, like, oh, I want to pull all my loved ones onto my path, right?
Mhm.
And I felt sad seeing all these people go to the left. But then at the same moment, it was like my higher self, my higher mind, whatever you want to call it, said, it's okay. Time doesn't exist. This is all happening at once. And it's not like you'll never see them again. They're on their path. It's all okay. They're where they're supposed to be. It's fine. And your light matters. Just playing the guitar and smiling at folks going on their pathways. So I do think we have somewhat of a timeline split. I don't have a clue how that's going to play out in a sense where right now we're kind of seeing them converge. We're seeing it all at once, but then eventually we will be more on our pathways. I don't know how that's going to look. Um, do I believe everything in those emails that I shared with you? I'm open to them for sure. And I don't think anyone's going to save us. And I do believe there's other beings in other dimensions and other realities. I don't think that we hop on a rocket ship like NASA and we go to another star system. I think there are interstellar travel through portals, and I've heard of people in secret space programs. And I think some of that is BS, but some of it is true, where they've been in ships where it navigates via your consciousness.
Mhm.
Like your consciousness tells it where to go. And so yeah, I still believe there's other realities and other dimensions and other beings. And I do think that there will be some, I don't want to say help, but maybe assistance, especially on the higher timelines at some point. But we have to put in the effort and the work. Nobody's going to save us. So, and I don't know what that's going to look like. I really don't. I have an idea of what you might call the lower dissension timelines might look like. Smart cities, transhumanism, get the brain chip, you'll live forever, all that kind of stuff. Full surveillance. And you can watch the movies and kind of get an idea.
Yeah.
And I think no matter what, we have to kind of watch some of that before we enter off on our path. And I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I
Cool.
don't think anybody on this planet is just going to be like sunshine and roses. Like I'm on my yacht, just chilling, and you know, my money's not affected, my family's not affected, my health isn't affected, everything's great. Like I don't think there's anybody that's not going to be affected.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think from a soul perspective, like this is why we came. This is like the craziest time in humanity right now, and it's so so important. And so anything we say and do to affect humanity in a positive way, and it's all a choice, and you can shift timelines. And I think over time, more and more are shifting to the higher. Um, but there is a large portion I think that is not ready, and maybe they changed their mind. I don't know. So that's kind of what I see, and I don't know the exact. Um,
Oh, that's so
what,
good. Oh, I'm so glad we recorded this.
what
God,
about?
the whole
I
time
want,
you're speaking, I'm just
yeah.
like, I mean, you've got social media posts for months now. This is really good. Cool.
It's all true. Like I did have that vision. It was like I'm not gonna lie, I was blow drying my hair like naked in the mirror, blow drying my hair and all have you ever had anything like that happen, Brandon, where you've had like
Not
a third eye vision?
not in like such a awake space like that. Now, I could see, I mean that obviously
In a
like my
dream
hair,
state?
I have a lot less hair than you do. So like I could see like if I had that like white noise of a hair dryer for 30 minutes, or
Yeah.
however long it takes, like I could see how that could happen. The only time I've had anything like that would be like, in a meditation, like kind of in
Mm.
like a that liminal space between theta and alpha, I would say.
That's when it happens a lot. And even Ishel, um, my old mentor, talks about that. And I get a lot of visions that way when I'm waking up, but I'm not fully awake. I'm still kind of tired. I'm like in between awake and asleep. And she even says like she gets a lot of messages then too. Like to have it wide awake. And I've had that happen at least 3 times. And
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. And it's like it's kind of like seeing this world and then there's like like an overlay that you can see through so you can still see this world but then there's an overlay over it. That's how it was for me, where I can fully see the other two. It's like you can see both. It's like in art class in like
Mhm.
elementary school or something, when you're like trying to trace something, you put like that clear
Oh
film
yeah.
over it.
Hmm.
So it was almost like a film over this reality, and I can see that vision, and I can see, and it felt like I was kind of out of body, to be honest with you, because it felt like it went on for a long time, and it probably was 30 seconds, I don't know,
Wow. Yeah.
but it was really powerful. And I felt like that was me. I actually just thought of one more time that happened, so at least 4 times that's happened to me. um Wild stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I could do a whole we could do a whole podcast on just those different visions I've seen and how they've come true. Or but I think that was just my guides saying like, hey, like it's okay, you're in a few years we're coming into some changes now, like. And I think we've been choosing our timelines our whole lives, and we're shifting also our whole lives. We can still shift, but I think we are getting closer to where most people are probably pretty set, unless they make a significant conscious effort and change. They
Yeah.
leave the toxic relationship. They, stop doing drugs, or and they say, I'm on this, that's it. Like and you can do it, but it takes significant effort now if you're, you
As
know.
the current has sped up and strengthened, it's like a current in a river. It's a lot harder to like. It's like as you hit that like that as that velocity increases, it's harder
Mhm.
to shift lanes. There's more resistance laterally, versus just like it having it carry you. And I think that's probably where
Yeah.
we're at. It's like we're to the point where it's like a quickening that's been building for the last, I mean,
Yeah.
really, you could say 5 years, you could say 10 years, you could say 15 years, but I think there's been a quickening throughout
Mhm.
the majority of our lifetime in that stream of where these convergences are starting to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, um, all of your perspectives on the physical aspect, the financial aspect, the spiritual aspect, and what overlays there are, what differences, or if you found any friction.
No, no, and I think, and that's why, like when I was, it wasn't the best word choice, I just didn't have a better articulation of it, but like
Yeah.
what the where you immediately went to, which is like that's the most honest answer you could, so like that's the truth, right? Because you just
Mm.
with the type of prompt that I gave you, you're not, it's like an open prompt, right? So everything that you said gives me a clear view on like what your truth is. And I think it, like I was saying before, it is such um such a comprehensive transmission that, at least for myself, like I don't see any friction in it. All I can
Yeah.
really do, and all that, I jotted down some notes of just mostly it was like, and this is real, this I think would really be ideal as far as our dynamic. And this is
Mhm.
like a bi-directional thing where your like what you just your spiel, like your natural
Mhm.
organic truth serves as a prompt for me, right, to um just start to like add little blocks into it, like little things that came up for me that kind of fit within your framework,
Mm.
and then as I do that, then it's
Yeah.
probably, I would imagine it'll probably create a similar response inside of you, and so it kind of like, I think where you paint it, where you kind of set the tone, or kind of like, set the stage, so to speak, it's where we are um undeniably aligned, and then the honing or the details can naturally just kind of ping pong back and forth within that framework. And that's really, so it
Yeah.
starts as harmonious, and then it like self expands through like everything that we say from here on out,
Mhm.
that's kind of how I'm like receiving everything that you've shared. Yeah. And yeah, so just to kind of get into it a little bit, like you were talking about, or one thing that came up to me for me when you were speaking about like the media or journalism, and like how they um really set the boundaries from a status quo perspective of like, of perspective, right? It's like the media kind of gives that lens, literally the television lens, through
Mhm.
which screen, through which people um, start to perceive reality. So it's kind of like that initial filter, right, through which they kind of view everything. Um, and I heard a beautiful analogy, or when you talk about the news,
Mhm.
uh, NEWS, north, east, west, south, the broken compass, right?
Mm.
Northeast, west, south is for four linear directions, and on a linear plane, right? Which, there you go. There's the limiting lens to our multidimensional reality, and so it just like puts everybody's attention on on kind of like that material plane, right? Of north,
Mhm.
west, and south, and we already know that like the globe and all of that stuff, right? Is the calendar, all of those like lens that we've been given in which to start to articulate our reality, is in of itself by nature broken, right, or limited in some degree. And so,
Yeah.
people watch the news, it's just the broken compass, and
Mhm.
and through that, like, yeah. And then another thing you touched on was the most undeniable belief that we have is this transition that we're experiencing is and will continue to affect everyone. There's no one
Mm.
that, like you were saying, there's no one that's going to just like feel completely untouched. That doesn't mean it necessarily needs to be damaging,
Mhm.
but it's change. It's a
Yeah.
change that is
Mhm.
universal, and could express in many different ways. But we're just, our focus, right, is that it will also specifically affect everyone's sense of value, right? The way that we, and I think so if I were to like weave that in specifically to that framework of like, hey, this reset, what we
Mhm.
mean by that is resetting how we perceive value, and you gave a bunch of good examples, whether that's like with the bartering system, and personal development, but just like value in of itself is always, at least in our everybody on this planet's lifetime, has been nominated in US dollars, right? And so
Mhm.
everything, even gold, we talk about gold being worth a certain
Mhm.
amount of dollars. We talk about land being
Mhm.
worth a certain amount of dollars. So it's like everything on this planet, even other currencies, are valued in relation to dollars, and
Mhm.
so as that reserve currency the status that it has, it's that is the one of the master programs of this reality, right? Currently in our lifetime, that everything when we talk about just like value of itself is a very spiritual or kind of it's not really a material necessarily a material thing, but we've
Mhm.
bridged it, we've made it material as with the anchoring of it into the fiat currency. Fiat, you fight, right, is derived from the same word, and it's all it, you said it wasn't backed by anything, and I think you're right. And if you were to say it's upheld by something or backed by something, it's the military, it's the United States military, right? And every time the global reserve status of the dollar is challenged by a African country wanting to sell, resources for gold, right? Middle East selling oil for, Iraq wanted to, Saddam Hussein wanted to sell oil in gold. And that's when, we found weapons of mass destruction, and so whether it's Gaddafi, right, in Libya, it's like he started to accept gold for oil. We took him out, right? And so, Venezuela selling gold or selling oil for gold, we took them out. Iran selling oil for gold, you see where we are now. And so throughout
Mhm.
history, anytime the dollar's hegemony has been challenged, um, you see regime changes. And so anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So but we're seeing, I think, in what you were describing earlier in this kind of the last 5 years, the term de-dollarization has become a thing, and other nations, whether it was the BRICS coalition, which is kind of somewhat um, less tangible now, because there's, the shifts have continued to just kind of like straddle multiple timelines that it's not that clear. And the alliances are changing, but yeah, I think nevertheless the way that we nominate and value everything will most certainly shift into more of a, in my belief, I think it's more of a multipolar reality versus unipolar, right, versus just one reserve currency. We're going to see, and what we already are seeing, more of an acceptance for this for alternatives to the US dollar. And that started with the Basel III Accords on the back end of the great financial crisis in 08. So the Basel III Accords gave gold the tier one reserve status, right? It moved gold up from tier two asset to a tier one. And so no longer was the US dollar the only tier one asset on the planet, meaning that now gold on the balance sheet of central banks can allow for the same amount of leverage that US treasuries do, right? And that's why central banks have been buying gold ad nauseum over the last decade at an even ever increasing pace and decreasing the amount of holdings within US treasuries because they're the same. They're considered the same from a utility standpoint. And that's all they care about is like, well, how much fiat can I print in relation to the amount of reserves that I hold? And if I can do that based on gold, that's going to only go up in value over time in relation to the dollar, right? Then like, why would I not do that? And so it's a natural, I guess what I'm describing with, or another way to say like this multipolar shift is it ties into like what I've identified as the meta trend, from my perspective, like in society, like in this realm. I think the most meta trend is one of decentralization. And I think we may have talked about this before, where throughout the history of this planet, if from my perspective at least, whether it was information, all things have become more and more decentralized and distributed, right? For whether, information, knowledge being in just kind of like, with the monks, right, in the monasteries that the public didn't have access to. They couldn't even read and write in the language. And then now we have smartphones where it's like, or AI assistants where any question that we have can be answered. So it's like the access to all things continues to increase, which is a boon for personal sovereignty. Or I'll say this, it's a boon for the opportunity to expand personal sovereignty, where it's like we have the ability to take more, to be able to respond, right? So that's more responsibility that we can take, whether it's educating ourselves, um, learning new things, developing new skills, creating things, creating businesses. I mean, the first $1 billion solo business was just um, just came to pass within the last few weeks, where a founder literally with just himself and I think it was like $10,000 scaled a business just by himself to over a $1 billion company. He's doing over $400 million in revenue by himself, and
Wow.
that's never that that was a pipe dream even a year ago. And so our ability to create, and this is one way in which I think we can kind of like alchemize some of the transhumanist uh, aspects of this world, right? And technologies, and being able to use those tools for kind of the service to all, right? The empowerment of all. Because I think that actually that organically better aligns with this meta trend of decentralization, because decentralization just it's power, right? Responsibility, the same thing, flows through that same paradigm where people have the ability to do more than kings did in history, right? We are the poorest person. I know everybody's heard this, but like the poorest person on the planet has a more luxurious life, or at least in Western culture, than the King of England, 500 years ago, 300 years ago, right? They didn't. I mean, like plumbing didn't exist 200 years ago, right? And so, so it's just I think that that's like an important thing to kind of like anchor into, especially in how the news portrays the expansion of humanity in a very dystopian manner, and it can be, but I think it comes down to choice. And so I really think what we're doing, another layer of what we're doing is kind of showing, people that, hey, you need to pay attention, because if you don't, inaction is an action. And if you don't choose to, you know, alchemize these new tools, right, in a way that's going to preserve personal sovereignty, that's going to, bring more, connectivity and creativity and abundance to their family and their communities, then and we just follow the news, then we will end up, like you said, taking the brain chip and kind of isolating, right? Because decentralization can lead to isolation, right? It can divide, but it can also coagulate as well. It's just a matter of like that also comes down to like consumption versus creation. Are we using these tools for consumption? Most people do, and we see where that leads. Or can you use them for creating? And that takes a little bit. That's where you merge, um, like the third eye vision, right? Your vision for your life. You have to know what you want. You have to know yourself and marry that to these tools in order to create. Because if you don't, then you're just chattel, right? And you're just in a feed bag, with your mask on, right? And those tools will lead you to those people that are creating for their own benefit, right? And then you're just kind of a battery at that point. And so I think those are, we're talking about multiple timelines, and that's, I can see both of those paths being available. And really it comes down to choice at the personal level. That's what determines the timeline. And I think that's what you were saying too. And and so just to kind of like ground it in a little bit, because I know that was a little bit kind of more philosophical or broad strokes. I think that when I think about like, you were talking about who's in charge, or who, the central planners, right? Um,
The
you know,
dark forces.
yeah, like, the UN, the World Economic Forum, things like that. And I feel like my intuition is telling me that it's not, I don't think that it's, I think that I don't think that they are separate from this trend of decentralization and multipolarity. I think that maybe at some point, if you were to just kind of track the origin stories of the dark controllers, that it was probably more centralized and more unipolar the further back in history you go, right? To the original 13 bloodlines, but over time, there's a reason, it's like chicken or the egg, why people don't know who those people are, whereas you know what I mean? Even with the access to information that we have, you could say that makes them somewhat more irrelevant, right? This is an attention-based reality now. and becoming ever more so. And so the fact that most people have no idea that there are these 13 original bloodlines, or if that's the lens we're looking through, then they are by nature becoming more and more irrelevant, right? And so organically they are, it is it that too, that power structure is evolving without any sort of revolution action on the people. And so what I'm starting to witness on the world stage, whether that's through Trump's actions or, and how that dovetails or doesn't or contradicts the actions of NATO and the UN, right, or the World Economic Forum. It's like we saw Klaus Schwab getting deposed. We've seen so many of these figures that we would categorize in that in the dark planners category have fallen, right? There's tower moments that they're experiencing, and those are expanding too, whether it's through like the Epstein stuff or whatever. It's like you said, the truth is coming out, and every time that they and I think that's the kind of like when we talk about the current that's unstoppable, right? That kind of like it's kind of too late to, you know, we're kind of at a point of no return. And that's why, like, what you're seeing is like in history, like everything that they've done over the last 5 years would have worked a lot better, but like we've seen since COVID, every time that they've tried to tighten the vice, it backfires, right? More people awaken, right? More people every single time it's a new line in the sand gets crossed for people to wake up, right? I'm not going to do that, and then they try to grasp onto more control, and it's just this constant theme of backfiring. And so I think where we're at now, and I think this is even personified so beautifully in the Iran power structure, right? Iran, it's like how, at least how it's being presented to us, the there's 30 different um, governors involved in that power structure. That once the supreme leader Khomeini was taken out, there was a plan in place to where you have 30 different factions that are acting autonomously. So there it is. It's like it's literally playing out in real time. No matter what happens, it leads to more fracturing of the centralized power. And so I think the same thing, I think it's like it's a multidimensional, like I said, a meta trend. And so now we're in this phase where it's like gangs. I like to say like I don't know if you've seen the movie Gangs of New York, but
Mhm.
it's like that's for some reason like years ago that like I chose that as the analogy. It's not even, doesn't really matter. I don't think the movie plot really supports this, but just the idea that there are like competing factions, right? There's multiple
Yes.
all the heads on the Hydra
Yes.
are now fighting each other, right? And you've got
Yes.
and I think that's actually more helpful than trying to continue to operate in this paradigm of unipolarity, right? Where we have to identify, well, who's the bad guy? Is Trump the bad guy? Is Israel the bad guy? Is Iran the bad guy? I don't think that's helpful, and it just leads to more confusion. I think that for me, what's most helpful is understanding that it's everybody has their, again, we're in a meta trend of decentralization and everybody claiming their own personal power. And that's no matter what walk of life you're from, no matter what socioeconomic status you experience, it's whatever your plot in life is, you're expressing that. And so I think that on that at that layer, right, you've got this gangs of New York reality where it's like they all have their own personal agendas, and maybe and it's not so black and white. Like maybe one of them, like their interests aligns better with our interests or your interest or that person's interest, right? And that's why people gravitate towards these figures. So like, is Trump an evil person? No. Is he a savior? No. It's just he
Mhm.
has his own personal interests, and just like everybody else, he's taking care of himself and his family first, right, and his businesses. And the same can be said for the World Economic Forum. But I think even inside of that, the reason they've become less relevant is because these aren't, especially when you have a collection of people that don't have a moral center, right, that aren't ethically minded, then they're gonna backstab each other. And I think that's also what we're witnessing, right? Whether it's with the Epstein stuff or with the financial stuff, they're not, you know, uh, not narcissistic sociopaths are not wired for cooperation. And so and so if we are decentralizing and fracturing as a society, the only people that are going to succeed are the people that can cooperate, like you and I. And so that's where the power, I've heard people talk about an inversion of power, this tower, what we, those that were in power are no longer in, and the meek shall inherit the earth, right? And that's because the meek can cooperate better than the central planners. And so, yeah, I think that I'm seeing this also specifically in this conflict with Iran, and what Trump's agenda seems to be, and how he went after Venezuela, secured the Western Hemisphere. It's a global arms race for energy, right? To
Mhm.
fuel the technological expansion of this world. Like technology's always been another trend, another societal trend that's never stopped. It's the
Mhm.
only time it paused, you could argue, was maybe the dark ages for a few hundred years, but even then there was innovation. It was just a big pullback moment, but it still carried on. When you zoom out, we've continued to everything in life expands constantly, right? The plants grow, people grow, like everything is growing and expanding, otherwise it's dead. And so I think that what he's doing as far as like he's the rebel renegade that's like he's the master destroyer, right? Master builder. So it's like it's all encoded in his numerology as well. He's disrupting the system, the status quo, and these power structures as they've been. And you can even tie this into the astrology of Uranus and Taurus, right? It's same thing that happened back in the 30s and 40s, where the lines of power, the lines in the sand were redrawn, borders were redetermined. The reserve currency was changed, and and nothing new under the sun. We're seeing that now. And so now we're seeing this kind of like, he calls it "Make America Great Again," or at least that's the slogan that he's selling to the people. But what it's doing is it's everything he's done geopolitically is making the world redependent on the United States, because we were continuing to, offshore businesses, or, whether it's manufacturing, or, we were a net oil importer, right? We were shutting down drilling in the United States for the green agenda, right? And so we were becoming a dependent on the rest of the world, and he's reversing that, right? He's everything that shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, um, which supplies 20% of the world's oil, and the majority of the oil to the east, right? Like China, India, um, Southeast Asia, NATO countries. Anybody that's not getting it from Russia was getting it from the Middle East through the Strait of Hormuz. And so by shutting that down, ever since doing that, after we repatriated the largest oil supply in the world, which is Venezuela, and the United States already has, they're up there too. And we've opened up drilling he's already previously opened up that industry back, all the new refineries in Texas. And so now the United States is a net exporter of energy and oil, right? And so we shut down the competition in the Middle East. And he's saying this, he's like, we've got plenty of oil, come get it from us or open up the strait yourselves. And so what we're seeing is this kind of shocking moment, and Europe's already been in an energy crisis, right? And so yeah, it's just really interesting to play out. Again, it's like watching a mafia movie. It's gangster moves that I'm not saying are like certainly you know yeah, we can judge like the morality of it separately, but just again looking through the lens of facts, and where this economy and where the financial system is shifting, we are there are clues everywhere. And I think there will be, like I said, a currency reset as a result of that. um I think it'll be multipolar, like we've said, probably commodity based, right? We're seeing that with gold, I think the Federal Reserve on its balance sheet even has gold marked in the ledger as it's marked for revaluation purposes, right? And we all and another thing too that I find interesting is, why is gold still marked at $40 an ounce on the Treasury's balance sheet?
Mm.
Like why aren't
Yeah.
people talking about that? You talk about anything,
Interesting. Yeah.
like that at any moment they could just revalue gold to market, like just market to
Hmm.
market, and it's that easy. Just, oh yeah, no, actually we're gonna shift it to the actual value of, which is what, $4,700, and there goes the national debt. So it's coordinated, right? Anyway,
Mhm.
Um, Going back to what you started with too about like what is at risk, I agree. I think pensions, Social Security, all these things that people have relied on in the past,
Mm.
there's going to be a change again, and what maintains value, we're shifting into more of a commodity based super cycle is what we're seeing. Like that's not really just it's not really my opinion. Um, and the reason I worry about pensions and Social Security is because seeing what um, at least the former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was doing a couple years ago, where we've had this series of government shutdowns. It's like every few months the government shuts down, and we have to like raise the debt ceiling in order to
Mhm.
continue to fund the government and the debt. They she they started borrowing from the U.S. government federal employee pension funds and Social Security funds. So the accounts that are supposed to pay out those benefits, the Treasury has been borrowing from, right? And that's like specifically the United States Postal Worker Pension Fund and the Veteran Benefit
Wow.
Fund as well.
Mhm.
And of course that of course the news doesn't report that. Um, but oh, we'll pay it back, but with a ballooning debt, how is that how when have we ever paid off the debt? And so I
Mhm.
think that what's going to happen is and most people I think are pretty I feel like more and more people are pretty like are becoming more aware that like Social Security's like our generation, I don't think is really
Mhm.
counting on that. Um,
Right.
but I do worry about it's like where does the like who gets crushed in where the rubber meets the road,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that the people that we connect with, could
Mhm.
benefit from some of that gnosis, is knowing that, hey, like Social Security's not there, and like I don't remember the numbers, but even at the current debt levels, the projected
Yeah,
payout, you probably
I
know this
know.
better than anybody.
Yeah, I do actually. If they don't make any changes by 2035, they'll have to cut Social Security by 25%.
And it's already not enough.
And I guess the thinking is, and I don't know if this is true, but the thinking is they'll just, kick the can down the road and raise full retirement age or raise, you know what I mean? But is that going to be enough for, I don't know.
Well, it's I think it's all connected to that time, that hourglass that you were kind of hinting at earlier, where it's like we don't know exactly the day,
Yeah.
but like what I think that it's just another symptom
Hmm.
of the unsustainability of the debt that we have with in regards to the dollar, right? Whether that's being able to service the debt, right? Because we're at a point now where we're having trouble at the treasury auctions selling more enough bonds just to make the interest payments that continue to balloon, right? And of course, as inflation grows, the budget for everything, whether even the military now, we're looking at a $1.5 trillion annual military budget, um,
Hmm.
which has tripled in the last few years. And so as everything continues to do so, we've talked about like in the last 5 years, the purchasing power of the dollar's dropped 20%. So that means if you're $40 trillion in debt, most people can't even comprehend or visualize how much money that
Yeah.
is. It's like when you do it in time, I've seen this before where it's like 40 trillion seconds is like is literally like infinity. It's like it's billions of years, like
Yeah.
it's crazy. And so yeah, so I think that 401ks, um, maybe a little more flexibility there, right, than pensions and Social Security potentially, if you have some flexibility in what can get invested, funds can get invested in.
Really? I
But
almost feel
maybe
the
not.
opposite. I
Yeah,
almost
maybe
feel the
maybe not.
opposite there. I almost feel 401ks and IRAs are more vulnerable than Social Security and pensions, but I don't know.
Well, I think what it comes down to, because what all of those accounts have in common
Yeah.
is a third party custodian. It's counterparty risk, right?
Yeah.
trusting the government that the money's going to be there for the pension and or the Social Security, right?
Mhm.
It's trusting, whoever the custodian is, or your employer, right? And then they're not even in charge of it. They're not even a custodian, right? They
Right.
outsource that. And so I think what this goes back to like sovereignty and everything else that we've talked about on the meta trend side, where self custody is what, and you said this with metals, it's like it's self custody, it's property in your own control, right? It's not paper metals. It's not,
Right.
it's not ETFs, it's
Mhm.
not, and I think and we're starting to see the emergence of these derivatives in the crypto market as well, which started as self-custody, right? Only. And so I think that that's really, whether it's land, like any sort of property that someone can, you know, maintain themselves, then that's really the only way to eliminate counterparty risk,
Mhm.
is that through that self-custody.
Yeah.
But I
I
even
think the
I
problem,
would go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just going to say real quick something about 401ks. What I see the problem with 401ks, 403bs, or employer plans in general is they're very limited options. And so even if I like, right, I'm supposed to have a call with a client today, I don't manage his, 401k. I don't even recommend 401ks, but if he's getting free matching money, get the free matching money. But when we're planning for what we're talking about is coming, you have very limited options to move your money. They don't give you too many options. So, and you have no
Right.
control. So,
You're right. You're right.
um, so I really worry about 401ks and IRAs, but especially like employer plans, 401ks and 403bs. They just don't have many options. And I'm going to try to give him some direction on where some places to put it. Um, that might be safer for what's to come because he can't really move it. It's his current 401k is not 59 and a half. So that's the problem that we're going to see is, you can only prepare so much if you have a current employer 401k, is
Yeah.
there might be some better places to put it, but it might be something like no matter where you put it, it's,
Well,
you
you're
know,
right. He doesn't own it.
right.
You don't own your 401k. You're not the owner. It's like you don't have
Mhm.
control. You're not the owner. It's like yeah, the fees are high, so it's like kind of like you said. I mean, I agree. It's like the antithesis of sovereignty.
So it's
It's
almost
like, oh,
like even,
daddy, give me that matching money. Yes, thank
yeah.
you. Oh yeah, put it where you think's best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like even with the matching, you might just be better off taking that money elsewhere, especially where we're headed.
Yeah,
The more I think about it.
if you're invested in shit, then you're just getting matched with more shit, like, excuse my it's
Yeah,
just,
and if all your options is shit and it's all going to be affected by a significant downturn or
then you just
reset,
have twice
then
as much.
you shouldn't be putting your money in there at all. So it really is a risk.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that, I kind of tying into that is like the K-shaped economy concept, where it's like, that's it's a side effect of um it's kind of like a diseased branch of this multipolar kind of like, expansion of the economy that we're seeing. It's like, because the way that it's being guided, at least presently, right,
Mhm,
through more inflation and more stimulus, right? And it's benefiting, this inflation benefits the custodians, right?
mhm,
Those that do take responsibility, right? Those that do claim the power, right, and own assets benefit from this this expanding inflation and debasement. Whereas like the people, most good people that have trusted the powers that be in the past are the bottom of the K, right? And so it's like everything that you have to buy, the cost of living, it's like your purchasing power is going down but the value of assets are going up. And so this is how like the rich continue to get even more richer and the poor
Hmm.
continue to get even more poorer, you know, and it's not
Hmm.
even like it doesn't even necessarily have to be intentional. It's just like that's just because the top half of the K, bless you, is doing something about it. And the
Yeah.
bottom half is hasn't claimed their own sovereignty enough, right? They're just kind of getting by. And that's just, kind of getting beyond blame, which is also important in regards to, to claiming your power and becoming more sovereign, So I think that's, you know, part of our message is like, yeah, like own assets, self custody if possible, right? Because it'll allow you to do the same thing, but with a morally centric mentality, and be able to better serve the community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really good.
Seeing a lot on cyber pandemics more and more lately. It kind of went away for a couple years, after they had
mm,
ran the simulation, the World Economic Forum simulation. But I'm starting to see now with like the whole Claude Mythos leak that they're saying happened, and how it's like finding all these vulnerabilities in code that's been secure for 20, 30 years.
mhm.
Um, or the Iran hacker groups that are going to attack the banking system of the West. Like there's just if you pay attention to some of the news lately, it's like there's more of this like uh,
Yeah.
I think Sam Altman for OpenAI was talking about like it's certainly a high risk right now within the next year, and the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell at his last speech, right? I shared that with you. He was saying like it hasn't happened yet.
But I think that their plan, I think that's all part of the narrative and they'll blame it on Iran. But I think it's all planned and that it's just an easy blame to blame on Iran. That's what I think. What do you think?
I think that whether it's Iran, anybody that makes the most sense at the time, I
Hmm.
think Iran's a strong candidate. I think that Russia
To get the
has
blame?
historically Russia's been kind of the whipping boy on that end,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
China, like certainly a strong candidate. Um, so yeah, I mean when in reality it's probably an inside job, or
Hmm.
a combination, a coordinated effort,
Hmm.
right? Because we have to sell this transition. We have to sell this reset somehow. It
Yes,
has
you
to,
have to
and
make people want it. Every single thing they do, they make you want it. It's for your safety. It's for the good of the planet. It's for grandma. It's for wear
problem
your
reaction
mask,
solution.
get your shots, do what, you know what I mean? Create the problem to create the solution. So it's
And,
just a constant cycle and it's exhausting for folks like you and I that can see what they're
but
doing.
and the truth is it's again like it's not. I don't even think it's necessarily good or evil, because it's just human nature, right? They're just responding to human nature. They know that the only way to usher in change at a global level, the only way to get people on board with a sea change in society, it's a formula. It's like math. The only way people are resistant to change, right? And we're so diverse as humanity that the only way to like kind of that they found, I guess, to um, you know, usher in those step changes is through that formula, that problem, reaction, solution. It's like it's just like how do you herd cattle or sheep,
Mhm.
and I'm not calling it, people are only sheep if they want to be. If they haven't claimed their power, if they haven't taken responsibility, then they have and they're still asleep, right? Then that's the only way that they can be kind of like brought on board to this organic expansion and decentralization of this world, you
I
know.
guess I agree, but I have a little bit of a, I don't want to say a darker view. I do think that it is evil at the top, creating the problem to create the solution, creating the cycle. And since it's mostly not for our highest good, I would label it as evil in general, if you're going to label something.
It's
But I don't,
selfish. It's
yeah,
selfish.
it's self-serving.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're because
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could take away the word evil and just say self-serving because they don't care about they don't care about humanity
Yeah,
or
evil's a judgment, but self-serving is a fact.
yeah. Yeah, service to self beings. And when I talk about the dark players, the dark forces, the shadow, whatever government, whatever you want to call them, um, I guess I view them as evil, but they really are just like feeders. They're just feeding off our energy. We're
Parasites.
like we're like little ants in a jar and we're just energy to them. They don't care if there's 5 billion, 8 billion of us or if there's probably better to have less of us. You know what I mean? It's less of a headache to control, but you
Mhm.
know, so yeah, we judge it as evil, but um it is what it is. It just is. It
Yeah.
is just self-serving entities.
Yeah, because they can't, that's the only way they can survive because they're incapable of collaboration. Remember, it's like what I was saying earlier. It's like that's
Mm,
just their chosen strategy. You know, it's like
yeah.
that's the old paradigm, that's the old power structure, but that's what's inverting.
Mhm.
And that's why the snake is eating itself, like in the omnivorous, you know, it's like it's
Yeah.
I think that ties into the larger cosmic cycle that you mentioned, you know, like that's what we're seeing at play now is a shift in that.
I agree that there's multiple factions and they're fighting each other. But I fully believe that like the players we see in the movie, like Klaus Schwab, Trump, George Soros, Bill Gates, those guys, I believe are just puppets.
Yeah.
And if you think about different factions, there could be different controllers of these different puppets, and the controllers are arguing, so then the puppets are.
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
think
It's
that's
just
what we're seeing.
fractals.
Yeah, I think that's what I absolutely think that there's different forces behind the scene, and it is kind of like Game of Thrones. Like, man,
Yeah.
who is gonna really run humanity now? Because these different factions are fighting, and I've even heard other folks that I follow that I really resonate with say the same thing. There's different factions that are fighting for control of humanity. And who's gonna win? Like watching, I love Game of Thrones. I know it's bloody and it's terrible,
But
but
listen,
there's
Regina,
some
like
truth to it, you
I
know?
real here's what I believe so strongly though. It's like that is an excuse now. Like we're in a time and place on this planet where we have a choice. We have a choice. A guy can make $1 billion company by himself, right? And so like it's what you choose to do with the resources that we have available that we've never had before. And so the only those power structures that we're like under the thumb of, those were set up in a time where like none of this was possible, right? None of this was that we, you know, there weren't even universities, right? It was still back. I mean, it was just like serfdom, you know? So I mean, it was like primitive, right? And we've just kind of been that's the original programming, and we're just not in that energy anymore. So like there's
Mm,
really no excuse at this point. The only limitations are internal. The only blocks are internal. The only um tyranny is of the mind, right?
mm,
Because like as soon as, and this was like, I mean, I wasn't planning on this connection, but even for those that have seen the movie The Matrix, it's like, what does Morpheus constantly tell Neo? You know, it's like free your mind. It's all starts here. It's what do you think is possible when he's in the construct? You can do and create anything, but you're
mhm,
limited by that which you perceive as your power, right? And
mhm.
so it's that fool card, right? In the tarot, it's
Right,
like the power
right.
of the fool is the new beginning. It's the new era. Like we're in this new cosmic era. We're in this, you know, Neptune moving into Aries, and it's the Aries season corresponds with the Fool card. It's the no, it's the first. You got to be delusional enough to believe that you're not limited, right? And so it is, right? And then you start to create with that. You start to ground that in with with Taurus season and what's valuable and important, and you start to build the structures and like and look at what like you and I have been able to do just in a short amount of time, you know, or anyone. It's like, yeah, and it's not stopping. It's a meta trend. It's like next year we'll have more access, and the 10 years we'll have more resources, right? And so I think that's if anything, like a core of our message should be that, which is that like people need to believe in themselves and that they can create and what they can create and then just like experiment, right? Like prove me wrong. You know, try
Mm.
to try see what happens when you actually put some attention and focus into a vision, you know, like over a short amount of time.
Mhm.
You know, like how fast did I make that logo?
Yeah.
How that
That
yeah,
was really good.
like that would have I don't think I could have made that 5 years ago or 10
Yeah,
years
that
ago.
was really, really good.
And
Um,
that's just a dumb example. You know, it's like yeah. I mean, I could go on, but I think that
I
that's
think
like
this is our podcast. Like this chat turned into a podcast. I think this is the podcast.
the cool.
I think we can even put that in the subtitle, a chat that turned into an episode.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, there's a couple things I wanna
And
why don't we
I'll say one more
yeah,
thing.
say one more thing and then we'll wrap up the podcast and then you and I can chat kind of
Yeah.
off record.
Everything that I've done in the last 7 years is walking that talk. I'm saying everything I said in the last 5 minutes is a personal anecdote. And it has not been easy. It's the opposite of easy. And that's the point, right? That's the point. You can choose laziness and dependency, the easy path, and that is what
Yes.
and you see what that leads to.
And
It leads
that's
to
the lower
servitude.
timeline.
And
Not
then
to label it lower, but yes.
sure. But then like following a calling, as crazy as it may sound, without the details that you think is necessary to move forward, like the path just starts paving itself and just like refusing to give up on that like the expansion is inevitable, the support is inevitable, the people that come in are inevitable. Like I've seen people leave, I've seen people come, and it's just all fits through expansion. It's the every day in every way continues to get better and better, you know. And like and even what I'm doing on the crypto side, you know, because I am choosing the lens of sovereignty and empowerment and expansion as I look into that world. It's like the things that I have been able to like I hope that like I'm excited for the day that like we do get under the hood. Like I have my own money printer. You know, I have become my own bank, you know, and I'm not and I can show anyone else how to do it if they have the attention and the desire to do so. It's not super easy, you know, but it's like you just kind of it's like plotting the course. It's like, oh, well, what happens when I try this? And then oh, what if I stack this on? And then and I'm just like I'm just playing. I'm just experimenting and finding a path that leads to yeah, like closer to the vision. So anyway, that's I'll get off the soapbox now.
We got some good messages here. Went off in some different interesting directions, but I think for the folks that we're trying to reach, I think they'll be able to resonate with a lot of what we said. Um, I'm realizing now that this is a podcast, not just a chat. So I'm going to wrap it up as if it is a real episode. And I think that we do kind of treat it that way. Um, I'm going to kind of recap and then I'm going to let you recap and then we'll kind of close out. So to recap everything that I was saying is now is the time. Not just to get your financial house in order, to get your spiritual house in order, to release habits that don't serve you, to get your health in order. If you feel a calling to something or a gift, to share it, to shine your light, now is the time for what we've been planning for. You know, I've heard in the spiritual circles, we've been planning lifetimes for this. And I've also heard, and it resonates, that what's happening on Earth right now is like the greatest show in the multiverse. Like, if you believe there's other beings in other realities, they're probably watching us, eating their imaginary, I was going to say telepathic popcorn or whatever they eat, higher dimension. They're eating their light popcorn full of light. But they are watching humanity. This is now is the time. Things are shifting. It's going to continue shifting. Financial system is going to change. Now is the time to prepare, step into leadership, embody your higher self, share your gifts, shine your light. So above and beyond finances, but yes, our focus together is how to help people get their finances together. And the reason why we did this chat is to see if our how much our visions align and what differences there might be, but also what we're sharing in our upcoming seminar, which is coming up Wednesday, April 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern. It is at Johnson City Library in Johnson City, Tennessee. If you want to come live and hang out, that would be awesome. But also, wherever you live across the country, you can sign on 6 p.m. Eastern and we'll do a Zoom. We have the registration link. So message me or Brandon for if you want that registration link. Please come hang out with us April 29th. And yeah, can't create enough urgency. And I'm gonna quote you, Brandon. Inaction is an action. So I am encouraging you to take action, not inaction. We're not selling you anything. We're simply telling you as a financial advisor and a fiduciary that works in the mainstream financial system that sees the writing on the wall of what's coming. I'm telling you what I'm doing with my money right now so that you can do the same. And Brandon, what do you want to leave us with?
I think that yourself says it so perfectly, and the ultimate truth for me is, I think, the law of correspondence is real, and I think leading a life from the inside out versus outside in can make the difference between feeling like you're just surviving and suffering, or surviving the suffering in the world, right? That's the external leading the way, and then going from that into thriving, right? From choosing what you want your reality to look like, right? By by embracing your own personal power and sovereignty, and choosing to cultivate that inside of yourselves, and this is, I speak for myself as well. And then watch and see how the external world starts to mimic that. The right people start to find you, right? The community start to find you, and the vision starts to find you, and the abundance starts to find you, right? If you cultivate that on the inside. And so, yeah, I think that's, I think the biggest difference maker for me, right, is going from valuing a life that looks good versus a life that feels good, right? And the feels good leads to the looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So to wrap up, hopefully this landed well with everyone and it resonates. Please share this with anyone that you think would benefit from this message. It's been almost 2 years since I did a podcast. That's how important this message is. So I hope it reaches the right people and you share it with those that resonate and that you got value from it. Come check out the free seminar Wednesday, April 29th. And or if you're seeing this afterwards and you're interested in what the seminar is about or how we can help you prepare financially for the upcoming changes in our reality, please reach out to either Brandon or myself. You can email me, Regina at sage.financial. Find me on social media. Or Brandon, how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website's growinnerouter.com. You can reach me at brandon@growinnerouter.com.
Awesome. Or Brandon Belk on social media, right?
That's right. Yeah, Brandon_Belk on Instagram.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
Regina.